Kurt Hasling. I supervise our police department's homeless outreach team. We'll refer to it as the HOT team. I know it's kind of redundant, but the HOT team. To the sides over here are two of my guys, Mike Palmer. He's one of my officers. Thane Gilmore is another one. And Sydney Forga, she is with the Department of Human Services. And we get to talking about community partnerships and those kind of things. I'll defer to her on some of those things so she can speak to what the Department of Human Services does. So what our plan today is we have a presentation. It's real chill, real low key. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, objections, by all means, share those with us. And at the end, if you guys have any thoughts, any brilliant ideas on how we as a community, we as a society can address homelessness, it's not just in Colorado Springs. All over the country is having this exact same problem for a variety of different reasons. You guys all have come from different backgrounds. Maybe you came from other cities. We're like, hey, I know what the cops did out there. It seems to work. We'll leave our contact information, but we're open for feedback from you guys on how we as a police department and as a community can better address what's going on here locally with the homeless population. So that's just a quick introduction, and as we go through here again, just keep in mind as we're talking what it's like. You guys ever hear that song by Everlast? It's called What It's Like. If you haven't, grab it up on YouTube, whatever you guys are using these days. How many of you were born in the 90s? Anybody born in the 80s? No, okay. That's all right. Never mind. Carry on. Anyway, YouTube, What It's Like, just listen to the first verse. Talks kind of about a homeless dude begging for your money. And then the rest of the song goes on and on about what it's like. A lot of these guys, they all have a story. You guys all have stories. Some of these stories are heartbreaking, or gut-wrenching. Is that an excuse for their situation? It's not for me to decide. It's just a series of events that they went through to get to where they're at. So, we saw that. Like you saw in the video, we cover 200 plus or minus square miles. 4 of us, plus myself. These guys are out on the ground doing more than I do. I'm generally in meetings and doing all that kind of nonsense. That's the fun stuff you're going to do when you get promoted to be a supervisor. So these guys are most familiar with the population. These stats up here, they're still relatively close. The population, probably closer to 500,000, city of Colorado Springs itself. And then you take in Fountain, Whitefield, the surrounding areas, that the daytime population in our city shoots up considerably. So 100 parks, over 100 parks, 15,000 acres of open space, which is really problematic for us. 100 plus square miles of trails, which is also problematic for us because those trails now become basically homeless highways. That's how these folks get back and forth north and south into town, east and west. That's how they get back and forth to service providers, those kind of things. So it's really problematic, as you can just imagine, all that scattered out over the 200 square miles. It's a lot of surface area to cover. But most of them are concentrated in the downtown area. We'll show you that here in just a little bit. So what kind of led us to become a homeless outreach team? Back in the late 2008-ish time frame, housing economy went down the toilet. A lot of people found themselves out of jobs, out of houses, et cetera, which then increased the homeless population. I'm diluting this down a lot, so please understand there's a lot more complexities to this than the way I'm describing it. But we had a significant increase in the number of homeless camps. Estimated 500 people at the time, homeless camps up and down our trail systems, which was pretty significant, had a pretty big impact on the way we were doing business. I used to be back in the mid-90s part of a team, a unit called the Neighborhood Policing Unit, that we used to deal with the homeless population before we had a homeless outreach team. The way we did business back then is we would go into the camps, get your stuff, get out, whatever you can't carry now is going into the trash. Probably not the best way of doing business. Well, on the heels of that comes some allegations and threats from the ACLU, who now has a lot of oversight, not just on our agency, but agencies all across the country on how we police and address the homeless population and the homeless camps. There's a lot of protections for them, just like there are for all of us, but because they have an advocate group in the ACLU who really is kind of a watchdog group to ensure that their rights are being protected under the 4th Amendment, 8th Amendment specifically for cruel and unusual punishment, those kind of things, and we'll rattle on about that here in just a little bit. But that was not the way of doing business. When the threats of the lawsuit happened, our chief at the time, Chief Myers, selected 3 of our officers who had also had backgrounds in our neighborhood policing units, developed a team specifically to do a lot of research, look at best practices around the country, which then led to the creation of our initial HOT team in 2009. Kind of the same thing I just touched base on. At the time, the ACLU said stop, so we didn't do anything. The police department was hands off completely, anything to do with the homeless population. The trash, the illegal camps, all the stuff, the petty crimes, the felony crimes we still dealt with, but a lot of the associated social disorder, if you will, and the quality of life in certain neighborhoods around town, we were basically more or less a stop order, told to cease and desist doing any of those kind of things. The creation of the HOT team, as it developed from its infancy stages, did a lot of research, did a lot of meetings at high levels with the ACLU, developed our policies and procedures, which we still follow today, which were in part, the ACLU had input into the creation of those policies, so we're protecting everybody's rights when we're dealing with the homeless population, as we should be. I don't have a problem with that. So, it says here, we backed off from doing any enforcement in those camping areas, and the population of the homeless camps just skyrocketed. And as you can imagine, when you have 500 homeless camps in a concentrated area, the kind of problems that you might have associated with that, whether it's from an environmental impact, from the human waste, the trash, the clothes, and all that stuff that gets thrown into the creek beds and the waterways and other places that it's not designed to go, became problematic. We can sit here and bore you with pictures all day. One pile of trash looks like another. But there's just some examples of some of the things we see. All this stuff here, all that is like food items, canned corn, probably green beans, oranges, apples, all this kind of stuff. Imagine going to your pantry and taking everything in your pantry and putting it in a big old box, taking it out and setting it on the side of the road for some homeless people to have. Okay? People from all over the city were doing that. There were boxes and boxes. Those were big, I'm not talking little boxes, big boxes of food. People were donating and just leaving it on the side of the road down there by Interstate 25 and Highway 24, kind of 8th Street area down in there. So what happens is, these people can't consume all that, nor do they want a lot of this stuff. What do I do with a can of creamed corn, right? I want to sell something. I want to be able to use it, get money for meth and all this other kind of stuff. So this stuff just sits there. The clothes, you can look through there and the picture you saw in the video and stuff. All this stuff here, all the charitable things that people are giving folks out here, that's the dead end of charity right there. Okay, you got, that poor man is cold, we'll give him a jacket. Well, guess what? He's going to take off the jacket he had on. He might put on a new jacket if he likes it. We're going to go sell it for meth, trade it for meth. It's going to end up over here. So anything charitable that people are giving out here, this is where we see this every day. We're walking through, like waist-deep garbage. It's like walking in a landfill in these camps. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality in which the world we're living right now. Up here, if you can use your imagination, that's the base of a grocery cart. A chair with a little bottom cut out. It's actually a toilet that they made. And this is just one example. We got pictures of hundreds and hundreds of syringe needles, which is a huge officer safety concern for us. That's a huge concern for the general public as they're walking into the trails, open spaces, little kids, dogs running off the leash, kids on tricycles and bicycles along the trailways. You can put heroin, meth, it doesn't matter. Again, we're a team of 4 officers plus myself. Background in community-oriented policing, which means the way we police the homeless population is kind of a non-traditional approach. We were very closely with our community partners. In fact, we really kind of couldn't do our jobs without the partnerships that we have with, dozens, and I got a 16-page document of all the different resources that we have access to. Without those partnerships, we would not be successful in finding housing and placements for a lot of these folks. So the community-oriented policing, we just have a strong background in that. We all know how to engage the community. We work well with the partners. We don't always, with the police, we like to have our way. It's our way or the highway kind of thing. Some days we do that because we're the police and it's a law and you're breaking the law and if you don't want to comply with certain things, then we get to be the police. The mission of our team is not to do that. The mission of our team is simply to connect people living on the streets to the service providers in the community that can help them get out of the situation. We don't come in heavy-handed. There are some that are just completely defiant, and those guys, they get to deal with us as cops instead of kind of social workers. We wear a lot of different hats in this unit. We all have a background and certified in crisis intervention training. And what that is, it's a very intensive 40-hour class. Its main focus is on dealing with people experiencing mental illness or suffering from mental illnesses. They're in the height of a crisis. Whether it's a PTSD moment, a schizophrenia moment, maybe it could be any number of things. The training is specifically designed towards mental illness, but the skills that we learn in those classes carry on to everything. It could be somebody experiencing that's just been victimized in a robbery, a sexual assault, traumatic car accident, death of a child, all of those kind of things. It's really a de-escalation, very intense de-escalation class. We hire actors out of Denver, a professional acting company who stay in character. You know, if you've ever been in a class or anything in school, you have to do role play, kind of act stuff out. It's kind of hard to stay in character when, you know, we do arrest control stuff. He's the bad guy. It's hard for him to be taken seriously, laughing and, you know, just horsing around. These actors are no joke. They will call us out on stuff, and but it's been really good, really beneficial to the team. Because why? A good chunk of our homeless population experiences mental illness, combined with substance abuse, combined with both. A lot of them are self-medicating with a variety of street narcotics. And then we're familiar, we shouldn't say familiar, very familiar with the complexities involved in homelessness. All the rights, all the laws, regulations, amendments that specifically apply to protecting the rights of the homeless population. They don't have any more rights than any of us. It just seems as though sometimes, how come they can do this and I can't? There's a whole lot of different answers to that question. Mike, you want to,
Sure.
You guys want to chime in on this one?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the reasons that we embarked on this unit was the cost to the city. There are hard costs to homelessness, and the latest figures we extrapolated from medical and jail and all those costs was $59,000 per year per homeless person. The last time we ran the numbers was 2009. What do you think happened between 2009 and 2018? You think it went up? I'm certain it did. I'm absolutely certain it did. Okay. So these economic impacts are real problems for not only the community but for our budgets. It's something that we're trying to have an impact on. One of the things that citizens get really upset about is, why do you not just immediately enforce something? A camping ban, a littering ticket. Why? Why don't you do that? Well, you got to imagine, if you will, okay, if you got a mentally ill person that you're interacting with, who might have some substance abuse going on that day, who might be drunk and in crisis. You tell them, hey, you can't camp here. He blows you off, we go into cop mode, we write him the ticket. It's a ticket. We're not going to haul him off to jail. We write him that ticket. Mentally ill, drunk or high. What's he do? It's got a court date on it. What's he do? Anyway. Do you put on his suit, tie, and make that court date 3 weeks later? Heck no. Absolutely not. Okay? Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's a $50 fine. Okay? That's all we're looking for as a city, as a community. We're looking for $50 for your act of littering. Okay? He doesn't go to court. What happens when you don't go to court? You guys are criminal justice majors.
Warrant out for your arrest.
Get a warrant out for your arrest. So we stroll by a month later, 2 months later, we find them still in that situation, defiant. We check him for wants and warrants. We pick him up on his warrant. Do we go to CJC with him? Nope. Why? He's drunk. He's injured. He hasn't had medical care in 6 months. So we take a trip to the hospital. And we drop $1,700, $2,000 that the city pays for before we even head off to jail. Then he heads off to jail. Does anybody know what 1 day at CJC costs a taxpayer? $82. The average stay for a homeless person on a bench warrant is 3 weeks. So a couple grand in hospital stays, $82, $85 a day for 3 weeks. Did we get our $50? Okay. So that is the point I'm trying to drive home with these hard costs. If we can kind of interact with this person on more of a human level than a comp level, then maybe we can not only help them, but also save some costs. Because this is costing the city a ton of money. A ton of money.
Any of you guys from Canada? Toronto specifically? There's a thing that one of our cops, he's got family, their officers up in Toronto, and he's from Canada himself, up in the area. They're actually doing something up there. He sent me a link to 4 different things, but what he wrote here. They've got 7,700 beds, 7,700 beds, shelter beds, at an average cost of $105 per night. You do the math on that, which I generally didn't do publicly, so he fortunately did it for me. You're looking at about $808,000 a night to house those 7,000 people. That's a lot of money, right? So it's an expensive issue that affects all of us. Any of us that are going to be paying taxes and working in this community or any community around the country. If it's set up like it is right now, homelessness has a far-reaching impact on all of our paychecks at the end of the day.
So we talked about this. And again, this is old data. Nobody is, bothered to crunch any current
And
numbers.
that was actually, the person that did that was actually, he was a math or a I tried to say that.
Statistician.
One of those guys here at uccs. That's why I do this for a living. But he's the one that crunched all that data and pulled up all the numbers from the criminal justice system, from the healthcare, from CJC, law enforcement expenses, all those kind of things. So it wasn't a bunch of cops sitting there around with a bunch of pencils trying to figure this out. Somebody that actually knows how to do this stuff did. So like Mike said, it probably considerably higher.
I'm certain it does. Back then, I do know this, back then, a day at CJC, I think it was $27, $29 a day. So we already know it's significantly higher than that. So all of these costs are higher. Okay. Has anybody heard of something called PID, point in time? For lack of a better term, it's a homeless census. One of the things that we do every year is we help Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and the United Way administer the PID survey. Its purpose is to get funding for communities. So if we can get some accurate numbers of people that are homeless or experiencing homelessness in Colorado Springs, that increases how much grant funding that we get from the federal government. So we try and do the best job that we can. So the purpose behind it is they pick one night, generally a very cold night. It's always in January, and we poll people where they were on that night, whether they were sheltered, couch surfing, living in a car, something untraditional than a true house. And then we present those numbers to the federal government, who gives us grant funding. What's getting more difficult about this is finding them, okay? We know where our tent dwellers are. Everybody knows where they are. If you pay attention, do it today when you're driving home from here. Take a look on the trail system, look off the interstate, and you'll see tents, okay? Those people we can find. What we're having trouble with now are people living in cars. There's a lot of those. And if you talk to them, most of them don't think they're homeless. They consider themselves to be sheltered because they are inside a car or an RV. Does anybody know why we're experiencing an increase in that? You guys watch local law, things that pass, change. Recently, El Paso County banned living in your car. They made it illegal. I don't know how many people they had living in their car in the county. I don't know if there's a lot of people, but it had a very significant impact on us because they had to go somewhere. And I think you guys probably know where that somewhere is. Okay, they live just outside our city, on our fringes, on our perimeter, on our borders. They moved into the city. They're now filling up parking lots. Do you guys know where the old Kmart used to be down here at Nevada and Fillmore? At the height of that, before we got a hold of the owners, it looked like an RV park. There was like 40, 50 RVs around it. Okay? So because those people are mobile in vehicles, very hard to get accurate times in this. Having said that, these are roughly our numbers based on
231, I didn't have note on there. That's actually the homeless juveniles under 21. So 238 of those, 9 of those unsheltered. So, but again, like Mike said, they're couch surfing. A lot of them are runaways from different places. They're bouncing around. They're almost impossible to find. We have Urban Peak that houses 20, I think. So those are no-brainer. We can find those folks. So let me just clarify the way we do the count. It's not like we don't do this. The police, we help. Do our part. We'll go into the camps, or we don't want the general public. This year, where they have 150 volunteers, I think. We'll have volunteers come out with us. Some of the ones where we don't want them going by themselves because of safety reasons or whatever. So let's just say it's January 29th is the night. Obviously, we can't go out and count 1,500 people in the middle of the night in a January night. So what happens is that's the point of reference. So the week following, that's what we do here locally, the week following, so maybe it's Thursday, we'll find somebody and go, hey, where did you stay on Sunday night? So that's the way that works. We're referring back to that particular night, that point in time. That's why it's called point in time. Instead of, it's just a snapshot of where people were at that particular night. So were you on a couch? Were you on in an actual shelter? Were you in a tent? Were you in your car? And how many pages is that thing? 5, 6 pages of the document? I mean, it collects all kinds of demographics. It's all voluntary. We can't make them answer the questions. If we tell them why the purpose of the survey is, so that more resources, more funding can come here to help programs that would ultimately support them if they choose to take advantage of it. But it, it self-reports on military service, mental illness, alcohol or substance abuse, those kind of things. And then there's a Pike Peak United Way, and community health partners now who'll be doing it this year. They compile all that data and ship it off, like Mike said, to HUD, and then they crunch all the numbers and make sure that people aren't double counted, those kind of things. Pretty involved process. We do it in January. Generally, we don't get the final results until late April or early May. So you're looking at about a 2 or 3 month gap, and by the time we actually get the numbers back.
We kind of do it in a, I think we do it in a more methodical way. I think we put a name to every homeless person that we have in Colorado Springs, and I think we have the luxury of doing that because we have almost an amount that's, we can reach out to each one of them. In LA, 50,000 homeless people, they are literally in the middle of the night going out, peeking under a bridge, counting heads, and that counts as a number. Kind of inaccurate, okay? Ours is a little better, but it's getting hard every year to get these numbers, to find these people. So, as you can see, our number of unsheltered, it's increased. It's increased dramatically. A lot of people keep asking us, why? Why here? Does anybody have any ideas why here?
Housing market's going up. Which
That's
is apartments
That's
are
part of
going
it.
up.
That's part of it. So, a lot of people ask us how many are native homeless and are people that came here for whatever reason and are now here and homeless. Native, lost a house, or came here with no plan, no purpose, and just became homeless here. And we are seeing in the last 2 years a lot of folks, a ton of folks that are moving here from a multitude of states, primarily 5, 6, 7 states, to be here. Which begs the question, why? Why here versus anywhere else? And, some people want to point fingers at things like marijuana. They want to point fingers at great services. We build a Springs Rescue Mission, so that's why they came. You guys have legalized recreational marijuana, so that's why they came. The reality is, it's probably not one of those things, it's probably a multitude of those things. And I think we initially had a homeless population problem in Colorado Springs because of simply the makeup of our city. How many people are from Colorado Springs here? Quite a few. Okay. So I think most people would agree that this is a unique city in that we're a medium-sized city right in the middle of a urban wild phase. Okay, you've got forests, hiking trails, and everything right in the middle of our city. There are places around the country where you're just not going to see that. It's a concrete jungle, so to speak. Okay, so that lends itself. Why? You can hide in plain sight. You can take advantage of city services, but go back to a forested area. There's not a lot of cities where that can happen. So if you drive around Colorado Springs, you'll see a higher concentration of homeless camps on the west side. Okay? Where are the mountains? Where do the trees get heavier? Okay? So that lends itself to why we have, part of the reason why we have the problem. Okay? If you get out towards Powers and the trees start thinning out, there's less homeless people. There's also less services out there. Okay? Marijuana? Sure. Okay? I didn't notice this personally myself. I had a reporter writing with me last year, and somehow he knew. I simply didn't, or I didn't care. He knew which states around the country had the most stringent marijuana laws, the hardest laws against marijuana. Just hammering people for what would be misdemeanor amounts of marijuana. And he compared that, because he rode around with us a couple times. He compared where these people were coming from to those states, and it just kept repeating. Georgia, Florida, Texas. They were states that had very stringent marijuana laws, and all of these people had marijuana convictions, and they came here without a plan. So that's part of it. So the reality is we don't know why the numbers are, until somebody does hard data and actually does surveys and goes out and interviews these people and gets real answers, we won't know. But the numbers increase every year. Okay? This is new, isn't it?
Yeah. This is just a snapshot of the city. Obviously, we don't have this mapping app on our phones. Every time we make contact with camps, we'll log it and it comes over the GPS location. Crime analysis does their deal, and our data entry people do their deal. Generally, you'll be able to see that it's a little clear, but these are little tents. But each one of these doesn't represent a tent. It's just like hot spots. It's like this is kind of the downtown area, Motor City curve down and through here. Downtown general area, that's where the rescue mission, RJ Montgomery, two of those shelters are down there, all the service providers. But my purpose for wanting to have this is you can see that, and we don't even have them all logged up on the northeast side of town, but just how widespread it is. And it covers the entire city. This is a point of reference, Highway 24, going out towards Manatee Springs, Woodland Park, Interstate 25. This kind of gives you the idea of where they're at. So no part of the city is really untouched. And again, we don't even have them all mapped in here right now. So it's a bigger problem than just one little tiny part of the city. That was the idea behind it, just a visual demonstration.
So, HUD kind of defines homelessness in types or specific people that fit into categories. Like anything government related, they like things to fit into nice, neat categories. Situational, just as it sounds, somebody has something, a bad event happen to them, and for whatever reason they leave a house. It might be a divorce, it might be a substance abuse problem. We see quite a few folks that are in that position. Those are the ones that I like to interact with, because there's generally something there that I can tap into and kind of pull them back out. Because I'm here to tell you, once somebody lives this lifestyle for a fair amount of time, it's really hard to pull them back out of it. It becomes their reality. They don't want to go inside. They don't want to hold a job anymore. And so the sooner we can interact with them and kind of get things turned around, we can have a more positive impact. So crisis, that doesn't impact us very often. That's more of a, something like, like a Waldo Canyon fire. Generally, people are able to bounce back from things like that. There isn't a long-term impact on them.
Real quick, California right now, we have a big chunk of California on fire. Not all of them are billion-dollar houses, not all movie stars and actors. There's going to be regular people like all of us in there that may not have all the insurance money. Maybe their apartments burned down. Maybe they're living in a trailer. Maybe they were living in an RV park, something like that. And now they have nothing. So no insurance, no job, because maybe their place of employment just burned to the ground with everything else. So that would certainly be a crisis situation. I'd be willing to bet that you're going to, because FEMA's not going to come in that fast, number one, to start dishing out money and building houses for people. It's just that we're still dealing with Waldo Canyon fire. People are still rebuilding from that. Same thing in Black Forest. I think the fortunate thing for our community, because of the area was, most of those were kind of upper middle classy kind of neighborhoods that got burned down. It may not be the case out in California, where a lot of these people are just, it's a crisis, it's a life changer for them. Everything they own is gone, except maybe clothes on their back, which might be burned, I don't know. So it's a pretty significant thing, and it could be a short-term deal. It depends what kind of support services those people have. If they don't have the support services, or they don't have the life skills or coping mechanisms to help process, some kind of way out of that situation, they might be stuck in this little spiral here and never get out of it. It'll be tough for them to get out of it. It could happen to all of us. This is the room. That's what's scary about it all.
When I think of people in this crisis situation, it doesn't necessarily have to be one of these big events for it to happen. I'll give you an example. This is my example for crisis. Is everybody familiar with the South Nevada corridor? It's kind of rebirthing right now. We've got a Zoe's Kitchen, what's the Chick-fil-A.
Most importantly, there's a Chick-fil-A.
So a lot of things, a lot of good things, a lot of what most people would consider positive things happening down there. If you don't know, if you didn't grow up here, that portion of South Nevada, always seedy, always crappy, hard to look at, drugs, hookers, everything that you think of when you think of inner city crap. That's what was going on down there. Amongst that, though, were 1940s hotels, motels that were crappy. Some of them with hourly rates. Those are nice, right? So, but think about this. If you have crap credit and you're working, a minimum wage or just slightly above minimum wage job, and because of that crap credit, you can't get into the lodges down the hill, you can't get into any of these nice apartments around the campus here, what do you do? Where do you live? You have income coming in, but where do you live?
hotels.
You live at those crappy hotels and you pay them $500 a week to stay there, which is stupid because they're ghetto, but that's what they were able to get into. But we just talked about the rebirth of that South Nevada. We now have a Chick-fil-A there. We have the Zoe's Kitchen. We have the Sprouts. Good for us. What did it do to those people? Well, what happened to those folks? Does anybody know? I know where they're at. They're in tents on our trail system. They still have income coming in, but they cannot afford to get into anything now. Nothing. They're still working. They have income coming in, but they're tent dwellers on our trail system. Kind of sad. So when I think of crisis, I think of that, okay? It's the loss of low-income housing, okay? It's not the greatest housing, but it's what they had. It's what they had. So there are unintended consequences to things getting better. When you think of urban redevelopment, everybody gets excited because, we're getting a mall, a restaurant, a coffee shop. It does have impact on other people. It really does. Okay? Everybody knows the chronic. Okay? You've seen somebody pushing a shopping cart around, wearing 16 layers of clothes when it's 82 degrees out? That's your chronic homeless. Okay? What's your primary cause of a chronic homeless person? Mental health and substance abuse. Okay? These are the toughest ones for us to impact because it's what they know and they're perfectly comfortable doing it. And it's a really difficult situation to break through to some of these folks. It really is. And we do our best to have an impact on those folks. But they are honestly the folks that we have to spend the most time with to have a breakthrough. Whoops. Okay? And then this final one here, these are kind of interesting. Anybody ever hear the term of a traveler? What a traveler is? So that's a homeless person that generally they're in their 20s. They're about the age of everybody in this room. They are just living the lifestyle. They're very happy doing this. They're traveling the country, hitchhiking, panhandling, smoking weed, enjoying life. They're usually happy-go-lucky people. We don't get a lot of, they don't give us a lot of hard time. But they don't want any services from us, and they're not very motivated to become citizens of our city. They're just here temporarily, and then they're going to move on to another community.
Kind of like the modern day version of the typical 60s hippies kind of people.
Yes.
Just kind of peace and do their thing and whatever. So, yeah, some of those traveler types, they have no ties to the community. They don't care really necessarily what's here, what impact they leave behind. Quite frankly, some of them are assholes. I can say it like that. There's no other way to say it. They're very confrontational with us, very combative with us, very shelter, very service resistant, which kind of leaves us as very few options on how we can address their situations. So like we've talked all along here, mental health, dual diagnosis, mental health, substance abuse, all those kind of things are factors and obstacles. You go back to what Mike talked about with the chronic homelessness, chronically homeless. with mental health, substance abuse. That is a really, 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 really difficult thing for a lot of different reasons. Number one, we try to really connect and engage with these people to where we can establish a rapport with them. We get to know their story. They get to kind of trust us as much as they can trust the police, given what they've probably experienced in their lives. But that's the goal of our team, is we try to develop that trust and that rapport with these people, so that, you know, we may have to talk to them 5, 10, 15. I think there was a study one time that it's up as high as 30 contacts, law enforcement contacts, before we can kind of now at least spark a little bit of an interest in these people to start moving forward to take advantage of what we've been trying to tell them that we have to offer them. So you can imagine, you know, if you do that 30 contacts times, you know, 500, 600, 700 people in the streets, not all of which are the chronic, obviously, but it's a tough thing. So those are definitely obstacles. There'll be others that we'll talk about here in a minute. Pets. I'll get to that in a minute. Pets. People have their companion pets, whether it's a dog, a cat, a snake, a chicken, a bird. All these things historically have been barriers and obstacles for them to get into shelters, because the shelters typically don't have those facilities to accommodate whatever animal of their choice. The rescue mission does, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. If I forget, remind me if you want to know more about it. Multi-generational families. Now, how do we as a collective group of people in the world, how do we impact homelessness and poverty? Where does that start? Probably starts maybe with our little kids. So maybe they grow up in I'll say, you know, it's called a dysfunctional family, a separated family, however you want to describe it. Maybe mom and dad are both substance users. Maybe dad leaves, maybe there's a death, so now we got these little kids. They just grow up in that, right? We all, regardless of our roles in society, we kind of have a sense of responsibility to help that family. And if we can start teaching those kids and life skills, those kind of things, maybe, just maybe, one kid at a time, maybe that'll start changing things. It's like turning an aircraft carrier. It's not going to happen overnight. It may not happen in our generation. But I think on the ground level, that's where we start to. Sydney, would you comment on that? Your thoughts on that too?
No, I agree. And part of, you know, what, you know, talking in with this is we are, even with the department, seeing an influx in homeless families with kids. I mean, I know how many you've seen on the news, you know, questions, or even driving by and you see parents out there with kids panhandling. Just see them kind of wherever it is that you're driving. And that's kind of an issue that we've been having with the fact that the generational is coming and it's happening. And we're seeing the families that are coming and they were homeless themselves as kids. And, you know, one we've been working closely with, she's been homeless since she was 12 with her own family. And now she's in her 30s and she's still homeless out on the streets now with her own kids. So when you're just seeing that repeatedly, it's because they haven't had anything to address, you know, what was going on with them when they were younger, and that's just continuing to roll over because to them, this is life. This is how we do things. This is how, you know, they were raised, and it's going to continue until we can actually get in there and help them to stop that cycle.
Very near dear friend of mine is kind of an adopted daughter, pretty much the age of all of you. She grew up homeless. Dad was not in the picture. Mom was a drug user. Mom was a prostitute. She moved from hotel to car to street living, camps, those kind of things. Fortunately, she was able to get into a foster family that just really took her under her wing and kind of showed her the way. This wasn't until her teenage years when this all happened. So she grew up homeless and in kind of that unstable environment for years and years and years. And then she gets brought into a foster family when she was 15, who really kind of started teaching her kind of life skills things. Proud to say that just this last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, she graduated from the Denver Police Academy. She's currently in the field training now. So it's possible, and to hear her story, she used to eat ketchup, used to eat pickles, pretty much condiments is what she lived on for a good chunk of time. Just loaves of bread, stuff that she could find laying around by dumpsters. It's sad, and that's what a lot of these things we see all the time. So what can we all do? And I just kind of throw it as a challenge to all of you guys to think about in your social circles what you guys can do, whether it's now or as you guys grow and get older in life. Just be thinking about those kind of things. It's not just about all of us. Okay, and sometimes it takes a village kind of a thing. Well, guess what? We're the village. We all need to step up to include all of us. We're all part of this. Additional challenges. I'll just kind of cruise through this. Legalized marijuana has been a problem for us. Has it brought in this huge influx of people? Not necessarily. We don't have any hard data to say one way or the other, but just anecdotally, because we're out there talking to these people all the time, I would say no. In fact, of that 1,551 number, 69 and 69.73% or something like that actually had a physical address in El Paso County within the 3 years prior to that survey. So 3/4 of them are El Paso County residents or have been El Paso County residents. So that leaves you 30%. They're kind of the traveler types or just coming new to the area and whatever brought them here, I don't know. But I personally don't think it's a huge. Is it a contributing factor? Absolutely. Is it the huge reason why we're seeing what we're seeing? I would say probably not. Who said affordable housing? Someone over here said that? Yeah, huge. I was at a conference in Long Beach in January of this year. 270 agencies from across the country, from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, all up and down the West Coast. I mean, we're talking big agencies and everything in between. Across the board, the number one thing that every agency that was represented there mentioned as being a causation of the increase in their homelessness was affordable housing. You guys probably all are experiencing it right now, trying to find a room or an apartment to rent. It's ridiculous. My kid's renting some 700 square foot apartment for like he's paying $10.25 a month. That's insane. So I don't know what kind of job you all have, but even with our jobs, that's a hell of a lot of money to be pitching out on rent. So mental health is obviously a number. I've heard numbers as high as 75–80% of the people out there experiencing mental illness. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not studying this stuff, but I can tell you it's a pretty significant number. Sometimes I think people present a certain way intentionally. It's hard to say. That's Mike's house. It's pretty nice, huh? Dang, that's nice. Transitional housing is a problem. Like Mike said, a lot of those motels that used to be problematic for the cops, for all the issues, the shootings, meth labs, prostitution, the list goes on and on and on. Calls for service that we used to respond to. We had them on North Nevada, the University Village over here with Kohl's and wherever all that Costco and BJ's and all that stuff over there. We used to have some really crappy apartments over there, and all three of us spent a great deal of time over there earlier in our careers. Those are now gone, and now the ones that are in the same boat, the Chief Motel, others down along the South Nevada corridor, like Mike explained, those are now gone. It's problematic for us. We used to use those back in the early days of the hot team. We used to be able to use some of those for kind of transitional housing, or at least a place to send people. The cash cow left town a long time ago, and they took a lot of services with them. There used to be a lot of people flicking money at this problem and having, oh, come on, we'll open up our hotels, our facilities for you. The big one down where they just redid all the Cimarron and 8th Street down in the neck of the woods. I don't remember the name of the hotel, but it's a big one, like a Holiday Inn or something like that. The dude opened it up to the homeless people for either cheap or free. That gets bulldozed. There's a gas station now. They did a new interchange. That had a huge impact on places for these people to go. So where do they go? All right, that's the question. That's a $1 question. So if any of you guys have this brilliant answer for that, kudos to you, and I can't wait to work with you guys. This will be cool. Challenges, again, affordable housing. These are probably a little bit older, but I think this number here is probably pretty accurate. It might be pushing up closer to 1,100 now, and that used to be just in a kind of regular old neighborhood, one-bedroom apartment kind of a thing. Challenges for these folks: they're sex offenders, they're felons. Their credit sucks for a whole long list of things when they go to fill out an application. If they can fill out the application, if they have the skills to do that, some don't. It sounds kind of crazy and all, but some people just, their development is delayed, they just don't understand the process, they don't understand the system. That's a huge problem for us. So they got all these barriers for them to even get into an apartment. They have $1,000 deposit, $1,000 rent, and $1,000 first and last month rent. So they may have to pay up to $3,000 to even move in. Well, some of these people, they'll never have $3,000 or have never had $3,000 to their name at one time. And now they're expected to come with all that money up front. Mental health, we used to have a lot of facilities and services. Back in, you guys all know President Reagan? Ring a bell? Did away with mental institutions. There are state hospitals around that some of the more some of the shooters, the mass shooters kind of people, if they're deemed to be incompetent kind of things, they may get put there. But mental illness is a huge obstacle for us. What do we do with this person? If they can't function in a shelter setting, maybe they're combative for a number of reasons, whatever. They're disrupted, the shelters won't have them. So now we put them back out on the streets. we don't have a magic wand. We work with a lot of service providers, Aspen Point and others that deal with mental illness specifically, but they don't have a magic wand or a big giant tower to take these people to. So many times these folks slip through the cracks, and then they become the chronically homeless that we see year after year after year after year. It's pretty sad. Talked enough about marijuana. Mike always say that Colorado has the best marijuana in the country. I don't know. I'm not going to every state smoking weed, but I think there is some validity to that. One of the guys we work with, he supervises our marijuana, what is it called? Regulatory unit. So he's the one that's going out doing all these illegal grows. When they legalized weed in Colorado, it brought with it a whole host of problems that nobody saw coming. Huge problems. You got the Mexican cartel, you got Russians, you got Colombians, and the list goes on and on and on of people that are coming to our community, doing grows and shipping it back to wherever, or some of it stays right here local, which has a huge impact on all of us, economically and otherwise. I remember these people that are yelling at us and just cussing at us and flipping us off. We had something yesterday, the lady yesterday was just beside herself, really pissed at us. But we have to remind ourselves, and we have to check in with each other. You know what? That person is probably or is experiencing mental illness. So you can't be mad at that person, which is where our crisis intervention training comes in to try to de-escalate some things. Sometimes it's better for us just to disengage. If we're not committing a crime, we're not going to keep pressing unless we have a reason to press. Then absolutely we'll do that all day long. But in this particular case, it was more just a consensual contact kind of a thing. Well, not so much, but after a few choice words and her flipping us off, we're like, oh. But then Mike reminded all of us, and me certainly, that you know what, we got to keep that in mind, that the mental illness is a huge factor in all of this stuff. So partnerships, this is where I'll have Cindy come in here in just a second. We as the police can't do any of this stuff without our partners. We have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds and hundreds of service providers that we work with on an everyday basis. We try to work with the homeless people first and foremost. They're partners in all of this. We work with advocate groups that involve the homeless people themselves. What do they need from us? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Well, sometimes when people ask you that, what do you need? I don't need anything. How about we change the question a little bit? What kind of support do you need? What kind of support can we offer you? Saying the same thing, but when you say, what do you need? It almost makes it sound like I'm helpless and I can't figure things out on my own. But hey, what kind of support you need? You need clothes, you need food, you need money, you need to get somewhere to take a shower, you need somewhere, you need to get up to the service center up here on Garland Gods Road to help apply for food stamps and other kind of things, instead of just help. Because I think if you, at least in me, and I hear people say it, help, it's almost like we're up here speaking down to people, like I'm here to help you, here to save the day. No, we're here to support you. What can we do to support you? How can we do that? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad. Community, obviously, all of us, we rely heavily on the community. We are in the crosshairs of everything. All things homeless are right on us every single day. It's good, it's bad, it's hateful, it's nice, it's thank you for this, it's F you for that. We are literally walking a piano wire every single day on which side of the equation we're going to be on. Are we going to be law enforcement, or are we going to be over here and we're going to do the humanitarian outreach piece of things? It's a fine line that we have to walk every single day, and we hear it from all ends of the community. We hear it from our internal staff. We hear it from our own cops. But it's all of us. It's an issue that we all have to address. Service providers, and of course us as the police. Now, service providers, it doesn't really apply to you guys. Partnerships are two-way streets, and I'll have Sydney talk about that here in just a second. You know what we need from the police, what we, the police, need from our service partners. We need the support from them to give us access to funding, to bus tickets, to food, to pantries, those kind of things. We also need things from them. They need things from us. How can we be there to support them? And they call us. They all have our cell phones. They call us direct. Hey, can you come over and talk to whoever? Hey, what about this? Hey, can you guys show up at this presentation? Hey, can you answer this question? Hey, can you go check on this family or these kids over here? So it's a two-way street, and that's the only way this is going to work, is that everybody goes back to the community policing thing again. It's not just the police out here. This is absolutely, let me remind you to say that again, this is absolutely not a police issue to solve. It's absolutely not the city of Colorado Springs issues to solve. It's a societal thing. Everybody has a piece of this puzzle. And people look to the cops, people look to the city, what are you guys going to do to fix it? We're not going to do anything. We'll do our part. There's a big old piece of the puzzle, or there's a big puzzle, and we're about this big of a piece. We're at the tip of the spear every single day. We're in the camps with these people doing all those kind of things. What's happening behind the scenes? Who's working on affordable housing? Who's working on transitional housing? Who's working on permanent supportive housing? Who's working on transportation issues? Who's working on this? Who's working on that? That's out of our wheelhouse. We know what we can do on the ground from law enforcement side of things and connecting these folks with the provider. So it's a huge thing. I'm very passionate about that, and I'm absolutely a firm believer that probably more people in our community, as far as providers, really need to step up and deliver what they say they'll do. Quite frankly, a lot of them haven't. We've taken people to some of these services that say, oh, we can help you, we can help you. All right, Steve, come with us. We got just the place for you. Let's go talk to Sally over here. We go see Sally, and Sally's like, yeah, we can't help him. What the hell? Just yesterday at the meeting, you said, oh, we got all the services we can offer the homeless people. So that's kind of a sidebar conversation that we could all have, but that's the point there. A couple of local priors. Sydney was supposed to send me a thing to put in here to show Department of Human Services. Catholic Charities is a big part of this. ESM, Homeward Pikes Peak, United Way, Urban Peak, Key Colorado Springs, beautiful down here in the corner. Rescue Mission, of course, Salvation Army, our city's code enforcement quality of life team. You see all the trash and stuff on the side of the roads and up and down the trail systems. They're the ones that pick all that stuff up. It's nasty, it's disgusting. Those guys are completely underpaid and understaffed, but God bless them for what they do. They're on our heels all the time. We'll do the camps, we'll get the people out of the camps, do the process that we have to do, and then they come in with their trucks and bulldozers and all this stuff to clean up all that stuff with the needles, the human waste, just the rotten food, the clothes. It's disgusting. But who's on our list is Department of Human Services. We have a partnership with them. In fact, Sydney just got promoted from the unit that used to work with our hot team, exclusively dealing with homeless families and homeless kids. So I'll just let Sydney chime in on what you guys offer or have done for us in the past.
So I kind of want to bring it back a little bit to what Mike talked about earlier about, just going out and issuing the littering ticket. From a child welfare standpoint, we get a lot of calls. We've seen the influx and rise of homeless families, kids out on the street. And, the question always gets brought in on, why aren't you out there removing these kids? Why aren't you taking them, getting them away from these situations, and, just kind of be the end all? Well, we could do that. We could just go in and remove every kid we see out on the streets. But now you're looking at, okay, what is that without obviously the immediate, where there's certain situations that are extreme, but what are you doing to that family that obviously is already in, a world situation that is, they're at the bottom and they're on the streets, they have the income, they may have a job, they may be doing the steps, but they're unable to, make that final hurdle. So do we now add on the stress of, we're gonna just go in and take your kids away from you, and that's gonna be it. So as we've started to see a lot more increase with the reports for child welfare for homeless families, the department did partner with law enforcement in the sense that we now have caseworkers that are housed in the police precincts. And myself and another caseworker have been specifically attached to the homeless outreach team for the last 2 years since started, where we'll partner now with addressing homeless families. So we get calls come in, we're going to go out, and a lot of that is the networking, the community partnerships. We've got a family in need, we've got a situation. Is it rise to the level of it's the best interest of a child to just remove them for his family? Or can we work with all of our partners together to get this family, keep them together, but get them the help that they need and get them over that hurdle? And that's what we've been aiming to do. And that's what this partnership has done, is allowed us to utilize everyone possible to assist with these situations that we're seeing more and more that are coming. And that's been the big push in ensuring that we've got partners doing the outreach, as much as possible of how can we help not just families, because there's been plenty of times where we're out for other situations, but how can we help everyone in getting over those last hurdles and getting them in. And so a lot of what we've done, even when we do, there's times where there's camp cleanups or there's, outreach in that way, the department will bring them out because we recognize a lot of people aren't able to just go up to Garden of the Gods and go fill out all the paperwork and go make sure you have your benefits, or go make sure if you're a veteran, you're getting all the services that you're entitled to. It's easier said than done. And when you're homeless and you don't have the transportation, or you don't have the ability to fill out the applications, or, you know, the system is difficult. I mean, I myself have to rely on others to be like, how do I get the TANF for this person? Or how do I, you know, it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of steps to jump through. So we're bringing, you know, collaborative teams that are coming out to do the outreach in these camps. Can we get you the services? Are you eligible for this? Do you have an ID? Because a lot of times it's, you know, a factor of something like that. So it's, you know, we're definitely there's always room for improvement. I mean, the partnerships, the agencies, the support, the funding is always going to be a need, but it, you know, we are trying and making those strides. But it is, you know, as we've talked about, it's the community effort. I mean, the more people we have involved that are helping to support, the better off, and the longevity, especially when we're looking at starting with the little ones to stop the generational, that's going to be where it comes into play.
But show of hands, excuse me, there's no right or wrong answer. How many of you might think that it would be neglectful to have a 3-year-old girl living in a homeless camp? How many of you think that would be kind of neglectful? The answer is it kind of depends. In and of itself, on the surface, I mean, when I'm thinking this, it seems kind of obvious to me, but it's really not. If the mom's providing, there's food, the kid's clothed, all these other variables come into play. Just because the kid is homeless and the family's homeless doesn't automatically make it a neglectful situation, doesn't automatically make it a crime. But that being said, when we come across those types of situations, we do our on-scene assessment and make a determination, you know, okay, this just doesn't feel right because, oh, by the way, there's a bunch of needles laying around the bottom of the tent. Hello, that becomes kind of a no-brainer. But if short of that, and it's just like, okay, it's kind of clean for a homeless camp, we'll rely on Sydney and her staff to come out and also make connection with the family and see, okay, what can we do to maybe help this family change their situation, maybe get them into a hotel, motel for, you know, a week's period of time while they work with a caseworker to see what resources they might be have access to. So it kind of depends. There are the real obvious ones, but then there's the ones that are like, I'm not really so sure this meets all the statutory requirements for a neglect or abuse case. Just quickly, our team back in the early days of the hot team, we used to be like way up here, like the platinum level, like we were the cat's meow of homeless outreach teams. Our teams had the luxury of training agencies all over the country. There's a couple listed here. Our team won an award, a national award, Herman Goldstein Award for community policing, problem-oriented policing, which at the time was a huge, huge, huge thing for our organization to be recognized with. And it was all based on the way our team was formed and the partnerships and the way we worked and the way we were addressing the homeless situation. We are still very good. We're still well respected in the community as far as a team. Nationally, we've kind of fallen off that high level, that peak, but we're certainly working to get ourselves back. There's a lot of variables that come into that I won't get into now, but enforcement is kind of our last thing. You know, we don't want to get in and join here heavy-handed, like I said when we first started. You know, our first goal is to try to connect these folks with resources. Ultimately, get them off the streets on however we can do that and however we can help facilitate that. Now, camping, I won't get into this whole thing because it really doesn't, really kind of isn't really relevant, but we have to distinguish, the team and I have to distinguish between, are they on public property or are they on public property or private property? Sounds stupid and all, but on the trail system, for example, literally I could be walking like this and I'm in the city. I keep walking like this, I'm in the county. Oh, now I'm on utilities property. Now I'm on private property. Now I'm on railroad property. Now I'm on CDOT property. I kid you not. And a little bit of space, huh?
Yeah.
So we're kicking the can. We're like, okay, well, it matters when it comes to an enforcement issue. So we have the authority to be there. If it's on private property, we have to secure private property enforcement letters, which then gives us the authority to be on that person's property to address homeless issues. So it's really, we have to navigate that every single day. It's a pain in the butt, but that's what we do every day. That's what I talked about our maps, and we can GPS ourselves and see our little blue dot exactly where we're standing within 16 feet. Sometimes it's right on. But it matters to us, especially when we're taking enforcement action. It's a big deal. But again, we're trying to, being homeless isn't a crime. It's absolutely not a crime. There are life-sustaining things that we all do. We all sleep. We all have to use the restroom in some fashion. We all have to eat. Those kind of things, we all have to do those. Everybody does. There's protocols and things. There's things with the 8th Amendment. There's things that regulate when and we can and can't arrest people if they're sleeping on the sidewalk, sleeping in the parks. in the alleys, under the bridges, on the trail systems. There's things that come into play before we could take enforcement on that. Is there shelter space available? Number one. We can't do any enforcement action for camping on public property specifically if we have nowhere for them to go, no other alternatives for them to go to. In which case now we do. And a lot of these folks are choosing to stay out there, so they're going to get to see the police side of us here soon. But what we do, again, is the goal and the mission of our team is not to arrest people. That is kind of the last resort. Now, you have a different set of cops come in here that are patrol cops that come in here and do this every single day. Absolutely. We're here. We're law enforcement. There's a law being broken. I have probable cause, and I think it's the best thing for the situation. I'm going to arrest this person. At the end of the day, is that really the best thing, to arrest a homeless person who can't pay a fine, wasn't going to go to jail, isn't going to make community service, et cetera, et cetera? Or do we take a little extra time and go, what kind of things do you need? What support services do you need that will help change your situation? Who can we have you talk to? Who can we bring to you? Wow, that's mind-blowing for law enforcement to work like that. Again, it's that non-traditional policing approach when we're dealing with it. Just some pictures of trash in camps, not really that exciting. Just more so to just show, okay, this is a big thing. It has an impact on our environment. Long-term, it has an impact on our water systems. It has an impact on our landfills, et cetera, et cetera. I'll just blaze through this real quick. I know I mentioned earlier, please, 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 please do not give to these dudes on the corner. I don't care if they're sitting there with a fake leg and a sign that says, help me, I'm a vet. There are so many places that will help to provide service to that person. Sorry, maybe that's heartless of me, but I know what resources are out there. A lot of these people choose not to take advantage of it. Statistically, the Department of Justice did a survey, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70-some-odd% of these homeless people, let me back up, 70-some-odd% of panhandlers are not homeless. They might be working poor, they might be supplementing a low-income job they have, or they simply may just be lazy, and hey, I'm going to sit on the corner of the sign, I'll do that all day if you're going to start flinging me 10s and 20s all day long, right? So for us, two things that we would ask people to do, and we do this in every presentation, helpcos.org, it's a place where people contribute financially, or they can give to a church of their choice, a charity of their choice, a shelter of their choice. There's a list miles long of people that provide services to the homeless population. We would ask that those donations be made to those people. Why? Because then it's regulated. Real quick, down behind the rescue mission last Thanksgiving, and we'll see it again this year, there's a huge camp down there for a lot of different reasons. We'd like to get a little bit bigger than what it should have been. But anyway, it got really big. The dudes that work at this auto body shop said it was like all day long, the Thanksgiving weekend, of just this circle of cars just passing through. And there's a little retaining wall there, and they were setting out clothes and all these kind of things. They were putting fully cooked turkeys out on that wall. Found 5 fully cooked turkeys in the dirt the week after Thanksgiving. Really? Come on. People need that. If you could have taken that to the homeless, to the shelter, the soup kitchen, they could have cooked it, maybe they could have served it and given it to the people who would actually eat it instead of flicking it into the dirt. How about you guys? That pisses me off. Makes me not want to give them anything. But if you feel so compelled, we have a very generous community, and it's a great thing we have it. But again, I plead to you guys, because of the pictures I've showed you and the things we've talked about, it ends up. It's a dead end of charity. It's not going to go anywhere. I want to make sure we have enough time for you guys to have answer some questions here. And if you have questions about paneling, by all means, we'll answer it. Kind of things that we do, we're not judging these people. I told you a little bit ago, I'm not here to change anybody's opinion of homelessness or homeless people. Every one of these folks has a story, just like we all do. Making a relationship, like we're not going to like hang out with these people or anything like that, but professional relationship, like you know what I'm talking about. Hey, that's Hasling. I know him. He's a pretty cool dude. Or yeah, he treated me bad last time. Or whatever. Obviously, I want the previous thing. All people that think, hey, this guy really cares, because we do. That's the whole purpose of our team. Find common ground that we can all work with. We try to understand the situations that they're in so that we can help direct them towards, give them space they need, like the lady that cussed us all out yesterday. And we could have pressed the issue with her. We probably just fighting with her. For what? Maybe a ticket. At the end of the day, who cares? Right? It causes us, all three of us, a bunch of paperwork. Me as a supervisor, I got to do all kinds of things to do that. I got to look at body camera videos. I have to read reports. I have to do these use of force complaints. All these kind of things. I'm a part of that. Not for that. Let her say her piece. We know she's mentally ill. Let her move on. Anyway, giving them the space. The shelter, Salvation Army. The shelter numbers have just been updated. I won't get into the whole thing, but we got 3 primary shelters: Salvation Army, Springs Rescue Mission, both of which are about maybe half a mile apart from one another, all in the downtown area. Urban Peak is the one that works primarily with the younger population, up to age 20. They have 20 beds, I think. They have the ability to house 20 people, but super good resources for us. We work very closely with all three of them. So with that, I will leave this slide up here. Thing's number's not up there, but if you want his number, we can make sure you get that. If you guys want to take a picture of that or write it down, whatever you want to do, that's cool. I know we went through this, and this is a presentation. We could talk like every topic you guys have probably had in your schooling here. We could talk for hours and hours and hours about this stuff. We're all very passionate about doing this. Couple things. I just got to share this one thing. It's just to understand people's story. There's a guy over off the tracks down east of downtown, sitting on an upside down like a 5-gallon bucket, like a big paint bucket kind of thing. And I always say, what's your situation? How come you're out here? What are you out here for? Well, this guy, he's probably mid-50s, maybe a little bit older. He tells me his story. He was in the Denver area. He used to work as a civil engineer. He got hurt on a job site. Because he got hurt on the job site, he's hurt, can't work. He's on workman's comp. His workman's comp times out. His working time times out. He can't pay his mortgage payment, pay the bills. His wife starts hating on him. His wife divorces him. Soon after that, his 2 teenage daughters both get killed in a car accident. Soon after that, he gets diagnosed with cancer. What can I possibly say to that guy? What could I possibly say to that dude? Oh, it's going to be okay. Are you kidding me? He'd probably get up and beat my ass. Right? I mean, seriously, it's not going to be okay. What can any of us, what would you need you guys say to a person like that? That's the kind of stories that we hear out here every single day. And it could happen to any one of us included. We get people here all the time. This guy right here, one of our guys up on this list. I won't specify exactly who. He's getting ready to go out for his second back surgery on duty related. There's a very good possibility he's not going to return to work. It sucks for him, it sucks for us, it sucks for our community because he's a great cop. But if he didn't have the support system, loving, caring wife who has a decent income, he might find himself out here and we'll be out here talking to him, bringing him socks and hand warmers and stuff in the night. Of course, we'd never let that happen because he's one of our own. But everybody's got a story, and I can't stress that enough. And that's it. If you guys have questions, please, we are open books. Doesn't necessarily have to be about homeless people, but if it's about homeless people, that's our area of expertise. But combined total, we got probably 75 years or so of law enforcement, maybe more. So we'd be glad to help you guys out.
You guys want to help me screw with my daughter?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a short video. I just want everybody to yell out on 3, "Where were you, Cameron?" I think that'd be fun.
Where were you, Cameron?
You owe me $5.
So no questions? Anybody has any questions? If you don't want to ask, yes. Panhandling in and of itself is not illegal. Panhandling is actually protected under the First Amendment. What makes it illegal is where they're at. Let me back up. Anybody reported that? Unrecorded. Panhandling in and of itself is not illegal. There are behaviors associated with panhandling that are illegal. So you see all these dudes standing in the medians, who's helping me, hungry or whatever, I got my fake cane, my walker, my wheelchair, and all that. A lot of those things are props, by the way. Just extra props. But what makes the behavior illegal is the dimensions of the median. We just passed an ordinance. It's actually a pedestrian safety thing that has nothing to do with panhandling. It's designed to keep panhandling off of that, because if they slip off those rounded medians that are less than 3 feet or some weird dimension like that, I fall into traffic and I get hit by a bus. That's the design of that whole thing. So the only place you're going to see where people can't stand on those medians is if it meets the criteria, a slope of, I think it's 4 degrees or some weird thing like that, plus the dimension, I think it has to be less than 36 inches or something like that. Pretty specific. And there's city engineering people around, measure all that stuff out. And you'll see the sign, and it has to be signed before the police can do anything about it. They'll say unlawful to occupy median with a white sign about yay big. Most of them are graffiti by now. That's the only time. But panhandling in and of itself is not an illegal act. They can be anywhere. If it's not posted, they can stand there all day long. Austin Bluffs and Academy, the medians I think both ways are posted. North and south of Academy, I think might be. You'll see some that aren't, simply because they're state highways, Academy's a state highway. The State Department, the state CDOT, they're not necessarily on board with what we're doing right now. So there's a lot of red tape and levels way above me trying to sort through all that to try to get the state to post their highways that meet the criteria. So, kind of answer your question a little bit.
So do you guys wonder why they do it? How lucrative do you think it is?
It's pretty lucrative.
How lucrative?
About at least like 24 grand a year.
So I'll give you an example. I was training a sheriff's deputy to do what we do. Their agency doesn't have homeless outreach, but they're kind of forging some inroads into doing it. So I met him up on the north end of town. If you guys aren't familiar with it, Voyager and Academy, where those meet, there's a lot of folks there that panhandle. If you don't know, none of them are Colorado Springs residents. They're from Denver. They drive down, park their car behind the Diamond Shamrock, and then go to the median. Right around 7 o'clock in the morning, they get in fist fights with one another for that top spot. But it's lucrative. So while I'm training him, I was tied up on something. He hears a call of female versus female disturbance in the center median, which, of course, to us means two of our panhandlers are fighting. So he goes over there and deals with it. I didn't get to see this, but this is what he reported back to me. He gets there, the fight, so to speak, was unfounded. That's not what was happening. So an older panhandler slipped on the steep median, and she started to fall down. The younger panhandler turned out to be her daughter that was panhandling with her, helped her up. Somebody passing by perceived that as a disturbance. So in the 45 seconds to a minute and a half that he interacted with this mother and daughter, people driving by saw this couple getting hassled by the police. They got a $50 bill, a $100 bill, and a stack of 20s. About $200 or $300 in about a minute and a half. They didn't like the fact that the police were talking to them, so they wanted to stick it to the man, and so it's lucrative. It's very lucrative. But don't get any ideas this week.
Yes.
So, but you have a question is.
Yeah, my question was, in the winter time, how do y'all treat juveniles different? So like you use the example of the 3-year-old, but in the winter it's a lot harder to keep a heater in there.
True.
So do you just take the child, or do you take the family?
That would definitely be a call. If the last couple of nights was down in single digits, if we came across a 3-year-old in a camp, that would be one where obviously we would assess it initially without fail, because we're mandatory reporters for those kind of things. We would make a phone call to the Department of Human Services. They would make an assessment overall with the overall conditions, the totality of the circumstances. The goal and the idea is that we're not taking the child to break up the family.
Right.
Their office, correct me if I'm wrong, but would work with that family. Okay, what services, what do you have, whatever questions they would have for screening that particular situation. But just to go in and snatch the kid and run off with them to some foster home somewhere, very unlikely. In fact, it's pretty difficult sometimes to remove a kid from a family, short of a very obvious abuse or a sex abuse kind of a situation. The goal is to keep family preservation, to keep those families together.
Okay.
That's where her office comes in to try to manage all of that.
In a lot of those situations, we'll even look at, like as we talked about, not just going in to remove a kid, but we're going to talk to the family on, okay, it is really cold out tonight. Is there someone that your family friend, someone that you know that the child can stay with tonight, or that you guys can stay with tonight? A lot of times we've seen where they have family here, they just may not be on speaking terms, or something like that, but really working with them and the understanding of, okay, we're not just here to remove your child because you're homeless and it's freezing cold at night, but for the safety of your child, for being out in this environment, can we look just for somewhere for them to stay so that they are warm and that they are housed, and we'll keep working with you on whatever it is that you need to assist with your family, but not just the snatch and, hey, let's go throw you in a foster home. Now, that's not to say that in every situation there are not those extreme cases where we do have to, go to the extent of a placement, but that's not just our first foremost goal. We're going to explore every option possible before we have to get there, and that's so that we can work with the entire family, so that we don't have to be back involved with this family, so that this family is not one of these families living on the street anymore, and that they have that longevity with them too.
Case in point, earlier this summer, they got an anonymous report of a baby in a camp, like a brand new baby. They went out with Sydney and another caseworker, and they're out pounding the bushes trying to find this camp, just a really generic description of where this happened. They were able to track down the camp. They found this little 12-day-old baby, weighed 5 pounds, that was born in the garage. The conditions inside this tent were obviously ones that it was a neglectful situation. Kid hadn't received any medical care, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously a situation that we're not just going to leave a little baby in this camp. Sid was there. They ended up taking that kid, putting it with a family member, as I recall, grandma or somebody. But yeah, we do come across those kids from time to time. We obviously have a heart for kids in those situations, and we will do everything we possibly can to remedy that situation as quickly as we can, with the least amount of impact to everybody that's involved in it. If mom's in there, she's got a freaking needle in her arm. Too bad for you. Kiddo's coming with us. You can do whatever you do. We don't have a lot of sympathy for that kind of a scenario. Absolutely for the kid. And if it's somebody's just down and out on their luck, having a bad time in their life, and they're homeless for whatever reason, and they're trying to do all the right things, and they're taking care of their kids, we will do everything we can and have in a lot of different circumstances, make sure that we can get that family the assistance they need, first and foremost.
One of the things we did in the short term in 2017 and the first part of 2018 was we relied on Catholic charities that had a federal grant. What that federal grant did was give them money for hotel vouchers. So when we encountered somebody that we knew we're going to face 2 days of freezing temperatures, we got them inside. That bought us 48 hours to deal with their long-term problem. And so without worrying about them being in a tent. The unfortunate thing is the person in charge of that grant at Catholic Charities didn't see the value in it. They came over to Catholic Charities this year and sat down and looked at books and didn't understand what that grant was about. They didn't apply for it. They didn't think we needed it. So we don't have it currently. That's going to change next year, I hope.
You have a question? Yeah.
So I know one big problem in the criminal justice system right now is the overcrowding in jails, prisons, and a big problem with that is homeless population going in there. Do you guys see that this community policing that you're doing, do you see that decreasing the number of people going into the jail?
Long term it would. Short term I would say not. There's things like say a ticket, it's 6 months in jail, $2,500 fine. The judges, city court judges, are absolutely not coming down with those kind of judgments on these folks because they don't have $2,500 and they can't make them go to jail because it becomes a debtor's prison if you hold somebody in jail to do off charges. The city lost a lawsuit on that a few years ago. Ultimately, I think, if I remember right recently, Chris might even have said this about one of their blocks down at CJC, there's nothing but homeless people.
Right.
That sound right?
Yeah.
So
the numbers are higher than they've ever been.
yeah. So I think if we as the police, if we as a community could, and we had more services out here, more shelter space available, I think in a perfect world, us out here with whoever we're out here with our providers, pounding the pavement, working the trails, making these connections to get them into the services, to get them to start moving down that path. I do think long term, you'll see the reduction in the incarcerated homeless people. I believe that. Right now, we're not near there. But most of the charges, unless it's a felony crime or something like that, the misdemeanor crimes, this is kind of the outcome of it.
And
I'm
you
not
got to
gonna
ask
hold
yourself
them
why they're there, why they're in CJC. Most of them are there not because they were sentenced to that, because the judges frankly can't sentence them to that. It's not on the table for them to do it. Even though the books say they can do it, because they don't have the ability to pay, he can't sentence them to jail. So that's not why they're there. They're there because they failed to appear. They blew off that ticket. That's the only reason they're there.
Real quick, I know we're kind of getting over time. Anybody have questions? Anybody else?
Do you guys see a difference in homeless behavior like between like summer and winter? Just because in the summer I feel like it'd be easier
Good question.
to be homeless.
He asked that question here.
So that's when we see the travelers. So that's kind of their height, their season to move around the country. And so the maddening part is we can only make inroads with people when we see them repeatedly. Oh, it's Bill. Bill's in the same general area every time. During traveler season, who are you? Next day, different person there. Next day, different person there. Later that afternoon, different person altogether. Constant changing. And we're not talking about an influx of 50, 100, 200, maybe 600, 1,000 people constantly coming through. They might be here just a few days, and it's hard. It's really hard. But yeah, during the warmer months, it's easier to camp. It's easier to travel. And
What we used to see too is the shelters. The shelter capacity in the summertime would drop down because it's nicer outside. Hey, I'm gonna go camp under this tree next to the creek. This is awesome. Do I keep moving around on your camera here? Sorry. So that in the summertime, we'd sometimes see the shelter numbers drop. This year, in the last, we haven't seen this. It's the first time I've seen it. But those shelter numbers didn't really drop in the summertime, and we had all those people out on the streets. So that just speaks to the increasing number of the population that we have here locally and the need for additional shelter space. It used to be a seasonal kind of a thing, but not now. It's pretty much a constant, with the exception of summertime, the increase in the traveler types. They're just kind of passing through, living life, hanging out, smoking weed, and doing whatever they do. So, which doesn't sound like a bad lifestyle, actually. That's what I'm gonna do. I told my wife when I retire here in 2 years, I'm gonna just leave her here and make her work, and I'm gonna get myself this backpack, and I'm gonna go to Europe, and I'm gonna go backpack through Europe for 3 months. Imagine how that went over. Not very well. Anyway, any other questions? Yes.
Just out of curiosity, I feel like there are a lot of homeless vets that are panhandling. What is your actual count on vets?
Was it 146?
yeah.
I think when we did the point in time survey in January, pretty close. I'm pretty sure this is accurate. There's 146 homeless vets that were part of that study or that census, essentially. And of that number, it's pretty low. If I remember, it's below 50. They're actually living. I mean, it's still too high. Don't get me wrong, but I even think it's might even be into the 40s of homeless vets that we're dealing with out on the streets. And there's a lot of services out there. A lot of these people have been burned by the VA. They want nothing to do with it. So that's where us trying to get that relationship going again. Hey, we work with so-and-so over at Rocky Mountain Human Services. Can you just give them another try? Let them help you out again. After some grumbling, sometimes they say, yeah, okay, I'll try it. We make that connection, and sometimes, you know what, it works. And these people are now housed. Perfect. That's the perfect scenario that we're trying to do, especially when we're dealing with vets, because we know they have access to resources, but they've been burned and burned and burned, or they don't follow through with something on their end. And certainly they may have a piece of engagement that they're not doing, so it's not all the VA's problem. It could be that person's not meeting up and doing what they're asked to do. That's a good question, though.
The number one false thing that you can put on a cardboard placard to elicit somebody's money and support is vet. It tugs at people's heartstrings. And it's unfortunate. We know everybody's backstory. I can't tell you how many times I drive down a road or South Nevada and I know that person. I know him. I know his story. He's not a vet. He's got a vet side.
90% of the time they're not. The ones that claim to be.
Many of them aren't.
They're not.
Many of them aren't. In fact, most vets are too proud to panhandle.
Yeah.
Star.
Do you have another question, Claire, in the back?
Yeah, it's kind of just based off of her question, because I've kind of seen that a lot, because I obviously, like a lot of us, have kind of a soft spot for the military, but you end up, I tend to engage a lot more with panhandlers than I should, not in the form of giving money, but kind of in the form of interviewing them a little bit. And you see that a lot of them, they're claiming that they're vets, but most of them have no clue about any sort of, they don't have an MOS, they never actually served in any branch that they remember, they don't know where they served or whatever. So I just wonder, is that something, you said there's certain instances where panhandlers can be, cited for their behavior. Is something like claiming to be, military, I know stolen valor is not really a...
Like misrepresenting their service?
Yeah.
No, not anything we can do about that.
That's an ethics issue.
Yeah.
It's not really a criminal issue.
Yeah, I know some places it used to be a criminal issue.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if it's for the purpose of panhandling and trying to get money from people, maybe if they're trying to access benefits and those kind of things, that would change that, but that's out of our arena. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.